What is the best electric car? And also, what's the best Porsche? And is this it? Well, if I just jump over this little fence, MKBHD's autofocus, eat your heart out, coming out of some trees. This is the Porsche Taycan, and it's like the top spec, super fancy one. Let's walk to the front, because that is a gorgeous looking car. This is a gentian blue. So you'll notice it's the slightly longer one. This is the Cross Turismo, which means you have the sort of, it's like the wagon, you've got the elongated back. That is a bit tasty, isn't it? It has the sort of active air suspension. So when you approach it and get in, it jumps up a few inches to make it a little bit easier, because it is a very low down car. That's pretty nifty. Hello, by the way, got my little GoPro hat setup going on. This is the Taycan Turbo S. I'm always on the lookout for what's next, what's better, and this has been on my list for a while. So what do you think of the interior? If you think of the competition for this, like the Tesla Model S Plaid, you've got the Lotus Emea, you've got the Mercedes EQS, EQE, or maybe the Audi e-tron GT or the Lucid Air, although I don't think that's currently available in the UK. I love some aspects of it, I don't love some other aspects. So before we go for a little drive, let me just sort of walk you through. This is the main infotainment system. It's actually surprisingly quick and responsive, but it's also not a lovely big tablet screen where you can do all sorts of things. This is still kind of a traditional screen here. I'm also glad I don't have that second passenger screen, because I think they're a massive waste of time and just look ugly. Who's using that and not their phone? So most of the time I use Apple CarPlay, you've got Android Auto, so for most people that's what, that's all that really matters. The rest is just extra. But then you've also got this panel down here, and you'll notice there aren't any physical buttons. Not on the air vents, not down here. You've got some nice physical ones on the wheel, the drive mode selector, stalks, of course, unlike the most recent Teslas. Fine. And also it is obviously beautiful to drive, and we'll come to that in a second. But for example, down here, let me show you the sunroof, the glass roof. This has the dynamic dimming roof, which is really, really cool. But for some reason you activate it by pressing down here, and then it goes up here. It doesn't make a ton of sense. Also, these are all just virtual buttons, but they do actually have a really nice haptic kind of little vibration, like you are pressing something. Almost as good as real buttons, but it's not quite the same. This also acts as a bit of a touchpad where you can move things around, and that's contextual based on what you're doing. But check this out, I can go from clear to matte, semi-bold. It's electrochromic dimming. So this is the clear mode, and then if I go to matte, you can see it sort of covers it, reduces the amount of light, and you've got a couple of other kind of nifty little modes. I really like that. Mrs. Tech Chap is a big fan of that. She thought it was really, really cool. But like, look at this. If I go to the navigation, it feels like something out of 2010. That's just horrible. This is the 2025, the latest version. This is the refreshed Taycan, but still, hey, CarPlay, Android Auto, everything you need here. And I do quite like the menus. I think it's very straightforward. You've got your drive options, including this electric sport sound. This actually is a paid optional extra, and I'll demonstrate the difference that makes in a second. It is quite cool, although a little bit kind of gimmicky as well. You can change all the ambient lighting, and while it's a bit dark right now, I'll throw in some B-roll from when I shot this at night to show you the ambient lighting, and it is just a very nice place to be. It's a lovely cabin. Now down here you'll find my iced coffee, which, look at that paper straw, absolutely useless thing. 2 cup holders, and then we've got the sort of center console here where you will find my phone. This is where you wirelessly charge it. There isn't any sort of charger up here or under here. You have to open this up and then screen facing away, put it in there. There's only room for one. It means you can't access your phone while you're driving, which is probably a good thing. It then says your device is charging wirelessly. It is cooled, but it is charging and also using wireless CarPlay, so that drains a bit of the battery, but the charging sort of makes up for it. It's a bit awkward to sort of get your arm up, pull it out every time you're using it. It's fine, it's fine. Now if I jump out, again, you look at that little suspension going up, that's also an extra. This is quite a far back seating position. I'm 6'2" and a bit. Let's see how it fits. A little bit tight there. I could definitely move that forward. You could fit 4 normal sized adults in the back here. And finally, look at that, you do have some physical movement for the vents. Maybe they forgot about that in the factory as they were taking those out. Have a little look at the boot. I love how it's a turbo. It's an electric car, it doesn't have a turbo. But you know, it's a trim level rather than actually saying it has a turbo. Got my squash racket, that is an optional extra. No real underboot there, just the charging situation. You can push those seats down, but not electronically, like you can on, say, the new Juniper Model Y from Tesla. Massive load lip. You'll probably get 2 reasonably sized suitcases in there, but bear in mind, because of this very sort of saloonish sloped roof, you can't stick out too much. I think it's a gorgeous car. I think it's got that right mix of traditional but sporty. It's obviously a lot more subtle than, say, a Lotus Emir, which is really, I would say, its closest rival in terms of price and hyper GT. The thing is that you can buy one of these for about £88,000-ish. Obviously it's a lot of money, but it's not the end of the world expensive. But then you've got, and I had to write this down because there's so many, you've got the Taycan, the 4S, the GTS, the Turbo S, Turbo GT, and also the Turbo GT Visac, which is the weight reduced package, and this is just carbon fiber, they get rid of the seats. That's what I did a recent Goodwood hill climb in, the Visac. Which can do 1.9 seconds 0 to 62. This one can only do about 2.3 seconds 0 to 60, or 0 to 100 kilometers. Only. I say only, that's ridiculously fast. No one needs that kind of speed. Pin down the accelerator. Holy shit!
My sunglasses fall off my head.
I think it's a thumbs up from Pete there. I can turn traction control off. I might play with that later. And also down here, you've also got the different modes. Range, normal, sport, and sport plus. And by default, sport plus lowers the suspension. Also, you can't see this at all. You just have to like play around for it and then feel for putting it in reverse. I do quite like the reversing cameras. You can actually switch between the different cameras. Really nice quality actually. And also you get a full surround view with this sort of bird's eye view. It's quite handy for parking. So putting it back into drive, we're in Sport Plus. Let's pull out and have a little go, shall we? I'm just gonna pop the brake on there, my foot on the accelerator, launch mode, and away we go. Oh, that is quick. So normally we have about 750 horsepower with this model, but in launch control mode, that gets boosted to about 950-ish, just shy of 1,000. You can also press this button to give you a 10-second push to pass, so you get a little extra boost to overtake someone. I was also surprised that there is no option for one-pedal driving. I actually really like driving that way in other EVs where the regen braking does it all for you, so you can just sort of let off the accelerator and it will gradually slow down, come to a full stop. With this, ever so slightly dropping. There's a tiny bit of regen and you can turn it on or off, but nothing really at all. So it's very much a two-pedal car. You have to brake if you want to brake. How very old-fashioned. I don't know if you can see from my GoPro, but I actually have a head-up display as well right in front of me, which is quite nice. And it is just such a smooth, quiet ride. It is lovely to be in here. And you kind of get used to it. You absolutely get used to it, because then, as I say, I went back to my Tesla and I was like, oh no. You can feel every little bump and every pothole. Let's go for a little scenic route, shall we? As you would expect, the driving experience with this is just sublime. One thing I actually really do miss from some other cars is having the cameras pop up when I'm indicating. I think that's a huge feature for safety. So if I sort of indicate left on other cars, you bring up the sort of side view camera so you can look without having to look over your shoulder. Unfortunately, that is just not an option on this car, even though this is essentially the highest spec'd Taycan you can buy. And you know what, if this was a Tesla, I'd be thinking, well, maybe they will update it with a, over-the-air update. They'll patch it in, but that is really where Tesla, with their tech, with their software support, really does outclass basically any other rival. Also, check this out. This car's been spec'd with the optional night vision assist system, which uses an infrared camera to improve the visibility in low light conditions. Essentially, it's thermal imaging, so you can see when cars with their white bonnets have recently been parked up, and so at night, or if there's fog, this actually is quite a useful little extra. And you can also see one of the benefits of having a digital instrument cluster is you can change it. You've got track timings, you can see how many Gs you're pulling, or maybe have full screen maps. Even though broadly speaking, I do prefer the tech in my Tesla, things like the infrared camera, being able to customize your instrument cluster, having these more performance and track focus features, it all makes the Taycan feel even more personal, like you can set this up the way you want. I'm also very much enjoying the fact that my seats are ventilated. It's about 32 degrees Celsius outside today. It's a scorcher of a day, and my seat is both heated and ventilated. So I've got a nice bit of cool air going on my backside and the bottom of my back, which you'll be very pleased to know about. Oh, that turning circle is fantastic. Given how long this car is, that's actually a really tight circle. Now you hear that, right? That sort of warp speed. That actually isn't as standard. You have to pay for that electric sound package thing. Normally it's off in normal mode. It turns on in sport, but I've enabled it for both. And that's actually basically just sound pumped in both inside and outside to make it sound like you have something going on under the hood, because otherwise you'd just be listening to wind sound and tire noise, because we don't have an engine. We just have a big old battery. A lot of people think that's a bit gimmicky. I quite like it because it does just add to the sort of theatre of it all a little bit when you are throwing it around corners, putting your foot down. Thing is though, acceleration, speed, it's nice to look at on paper, it's nice to put your foot down and do launch control every now and then, but really when it comes to an EV, the big question is the range and also the charging speed. Now it does vary based on the model you go for, but generally we're looking at sort of 3 to 350 miles, which is very good. It's not best in class. Mercedes, I think, has that crown right now, and also BMW with their Neue Class coming out later this year or the beginning of next year. They're promising 400 miles. The good thing about this refreshed Taycan, though, it's the much faster charging. With the top capacity charger, if you can find one, you could take this from 10 to 80% in about 18 minutes. Previously, with the old pre-facelift, pre-refresh Taycan, that would take about just under 40 minutes. So the charging speed with this new model is significantly better, which is one of the pain points of driving an EV. So that is a nice upgrade. And did you know the Taycan actually has 2 charging ports at the front, one either side, although only one of them supports the faster DC charging. Can you see this? The amount of reflections of the dash in the windscreen, it's actually quite off-putting. Obviously all cars have that to some extent, depends on the lighting. I have to look past the dash as I'm looking to my head-up display in front of me. Also an optional extra, by the way, head-up display. Anything nice is going to cost you extra. I know it's kind of silly. I know it's very expensive. I know my Tesla's better in a few ways, especially when it comes to the tech, the infotainment, the creature comforts and everyday usability of it in some ways. But this is just such a lovely car to drive. That air suspension makes such a difference. Like, if I could steal one thing off that and put it on another car, it would be that. I kind of want one. Unfortunately, I don't have the, I'm just going to tell you the price. This current spec that I'm driving is £188,000. So that's over, well, I mean, it's approaching $250,000. The Taycan starts at about, I think it's about sort of £88,000. Realistically, you're going to be speccing £20,000 to £30,000 of options. But what's the most famous thing about Porsche Taycans? Is it the acceleration? Is it the looks? It's probably depreciation, right? These are famously possibly the most highly depreciating cars you can buy, simply because people don't want to buy particularly luxury second-hand EVs because they don't know what the battery drain has been. You know, you reduce capacity over years. You don't know what, you know, the situation is going to be in 5 or 10 years about replacing the battery, how much that's going to be. And also, if you're going to spend a crazy amount of money on a very nice car, generally you want a new one. And also most petrol heads want petrol cars. So, you know, all EVs, whatever you go for, have depreciated horribly. The only way you could maybe rationalize this making sense is if you buy it on your business or lease it on your business. Because here in the UK, you can get 100% of the value offset against your corporation tax. So if you spend, let's just say 100 grand on this, then you would not pay £25,000 worth of corporation tax at the end of the year. Therefore making this 100 grand car 75 grand. Sounds good. But over that course of the first year, the value of it will probably go from 100 grand down to 75 grand anyway. Also, of course, EVs do have other advantages. In the UK, benefiting kind tax is like 2%. So if I'm using this personally as a business asset, I'm paying 2% a year. Any other petrol diesel car is often double digits. So I would personally be paying probably thousands of pounds more a year to actually be able to drive my company asset. So that's a big saving. And of course, also the savings you make by not having to go to the petrol station. And I would not buy an EV if I didn't have a home charging point. I think that is absolutely fundamental to making it more affordable because you can charge it overnight and get a better deal on it, on your sort of price, your electricity, but also having up to 100% of your capacity every morning if you're driving long distances. That means you don't have to rely as much on charging networks. So, what do you think of the Taycan? If you had the money, would you buy one of these? And if not, what would you go for? If you had the money, let's say. Let me know in the comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching it. It's a little bit different from my usual stuff, but it's a lot of fun. And thank you to Porsche for sending me the car for a week. Next up, 911T Hybrid. See you next time.